For generations, the Black-Jewish Alliance served as the backbone of American progress toward becoming a more perfect union. Black American dedication to justice for all, coupled with Jewish commitment to Tikkun Olam, sparked the formation of the NAACP, won critical courtroom victories, energized the civil rights movement, and forged what our guest, Van Jones, calls the double helix of hope. The fraying of that alliance has jeopardized the efforts of both communities, as well as the entire nation, animating him to imagine a renewed covenant between Black leaders, Jewish leaders, and leaders who are both Jewish and Black. A graduate of Yale Law School and dedicated changemaker, Van Jones has worked across political divides on criminal justice reform and clean energy solutions. He served as special advisor for green jobs in the Obama White House and helped pass both the Green Jobs Act and the First Step Act. A CNN host, Emmy award-winning producer, and three-time New York Times best-selling author, Van Jones founded Dream Machine Innovation Lab and launched Rapport.com. As we mark Black History Month, we are so pleased to welcome you, Van Jones, political analyst and world-class activist, a man who is known for bringing people together to do hard things and to get things done. Please join me in welcoming him.
This is cool. We don't have this. We should get one. I am honored to be here. Whoever did the Eyes on the Prize Hebrew remix deserves a Grammy. Seriously, who did that?
It's a team effort.
It's a team effort? If you don't know, this is off script already. I'm sorry. I'll get to my remarks. But if you don't know, that song, Eyes on the Prize, was sung May 1961 in Montgomery, Alabama, in a church where Dr. King, a few rabbis, and a bunch of scared folk were surrounded by the Klan, who were threatening to burn the church to the ground and everybody in it. And as you know, the church mothers stood and sang, "Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on," as Dr. King's legs were shaking. And that song then became an anthem. And as it was ringing out in the church, as the church mothers, as they did in those days, freestyled, as we would call it, those words that you were singing, Dr. King went down into the church basement and called the guy named Bobby Kennedy, the Attorney General, and said, you're going to have a mass murder down here if you don't do something. And the federal government intervened. So sometimes songs save souls, lives, and movements, especially when we sing them together. And we've been singing together for more than 100 years. And when I saw the young man up here, He deserves better than what we've offered him these past 2 years. And I want to talk about that powerful past. I also want to talk about our painful present. And I want to talk about our promising future, blacks and Jews. I never get tired of telling the story of 1909. I never get tired of telling the story of a country, the United States, that was not a democratic republic, was not a true democracy. In fact, the opposite. In 1909, we were an apartheid state. We were a terror state. And blacks and Jews' backs were against the wall. And lynchings and murders and anti-Jewish violence was normal. It was every day. Lynchings were public sport. And a very small group of black folk sat down with a very small group of Jewish folks and said, this is not acceptable. It says on paper we're supposed to have rights, and we want to make what's on paper come true. Now, it's very difficult for us to understand what an insane idea this was. Never in 10,000 years of human history had any group of marginalized people ever transformed a totalitarian regime into a democratic republic. It had never happened in human history. There was no roadmap, there was no example. It was literally impossible. And yet, something inside those Jewish leaders and something inside those black leaders said, we are going to make this country into a democracy. It was not one. And they formed a pact. They formed a covenant. They decided they were going to get it done, and they needed to come up with a name. And the problem is, what are you going to call this group? It's not a black group, so you can't call it the black group. It's not a Jewish group, you can't call it the Jewish group. So what are you going to call this group? They said, I know. We'll call it the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. Starts off as a black-Jewish alliance because in those days, Jewish people were not considered white. Y'all have just been white for about half an hour. This is a brand new thing in the history of your people, that for about 20 minutes you've been white. But blacks and Jews were not considered white. And they joined arms. This is insane. This is not a wise choice. But to show you that there's something special about Jewish people, y'all are strange. And something special about black people, we also a little bit weird, a little bit off our rocker. Another group, the next year, had a different meeting and came to the same conclusion. A different group of black folk and a different group of Jewish folk, unaware of each other, created another organization, which we now call the National Urban League. Also starts off as a black-Jewish alliance. So the younger people, they think, no, the NAACP, that's a black group, and Urban League, that's a black group. Starts off as a black-Jewish alliance. And those two groups hold on to each other's hand. And decade after decade, as the sister just said, they created something that we now call American democracy. There was no American democracy before the Black-Jewish Alliance. What you now call American democracy is disproportionately a consequence of the Black-Jewish Alliance. In other words, if you like American democracy, thank a black and thank a Jew, you're welcome, that's our stuff. We did that. You're welcome, America. So this is an important history. It's become a hidden history. And it can be overstated. It can be overstated. We don't have to make it more than it was. There was never a time when all blacks and all Jews came together and loved each other. No, that never happened. There were always some black people that didn't like Jews. There's always some Jews that didn't like blacks. We all have some terrible uncles and awful cousins. That's just life. But that makes it even more important. What it means is that the best people in the Jewish world and the best people in the black world, a small number, had enough courage and wisdom and vision to hold hands with each other and decade after decade after decade advance this cause. And so we all get to reflect in their glory, even though the reality is, and we're all friends here, the reality is the majority of Jewish people did not participate in the civil rights movement. That's true. Why? They would have been killed, stores burned down, murdered. The majority didn't participate, and guess what? The majority of black people didn't participate either. The majority of black people sat out the civil rights movement too. Why? Same reason. Been killed, murdered, and worse if you're a woman in the South standing up. It was a small number of Jews with that crazy kind of courage, and a small number of black people with that crazy kind of courage, and a smaller number of black Jews. And look at all the work that they did. Look at all the work that they did. And so this hidden history is something we have to hold on to because the present is so painful. Many of you in this room have given all you have for the cause of justice. You've supported people who have not supported you. You've given money and time to organizations that when it was your turn, not only didn't show up, but were hateful and ungrateful. I understand. Many of you thought you were a part of a movement for everybody to have justice, for everybody to have respect, for everybody to have dignity, including yourselves, including your families, including your children, including your grandchildren. And you woke up after October 7th to the shock and the horror, not just of the horrific violence unleashed by Hamas on people in Israel and that horrible ambush, but the ambush in your own lives, the ambush by people you thought were your friends, the ambush by people that you thought knew you and cared about you. This is a terrible pain. It's not just the pain of isolation, it's the pain of betrayal. And betrayal is the hardest thing to get past and to get over. And yet here we are. In the black community, I also see some pain that you may not be aware of yet. When I talk to black people about what's happening in the Jewish world, the pain, the isolation, the sense of betrayal, it's often a surprise to them that a black voice of kindness, that a black voice of understanding, a black voice of empathy would matter, would matter at all. I talked to one of the biggest black leaders in our church, in the black church, shortly after October 7th, and I said we should do a Hanukkah Zoom to pray with our Jewish leaders. And he said, why? And I said, well, because of October 7th, et cetera. And he said, do you think that they would want to hear from us? And you think to yourself, well, that's insane. Of course you would want to hear. Don't forget that the black world is suffering too. There's a sense that we don't matter. In fact, I've never seen the black community in this much pain. I've never seen the black community this lost. I've never seen the black community this hurt. Jewish pain is not in the algorithms of black people. When we open up our phones, we don't see Jewish pain. We might see Palestinian pain or black pain. We don't see Jewish pain, and vice versa now. When you open up your phone, you don't see black pain. Something is happening where we're being tricked against each other and used against each other. Let me tell you, when I talk to people in the black world, what they tell me. We're in economic freefall now. The Doge cuts that came down. You have to understand, the backbone of the black middle class, college-educated black women. That's the backbone of our middle class. College-educated black women. Those are the homeowners. Those are the super voters. Those are the aunties that if you lose your house, you can go sleep on her couch. They are the backbone of our community. They do not, in general, start technology companies. In general, they are not in the private sector. They're in the public sector. Think about the coolest black women you know. They're in the public sector. They work in philanthropy. They work in not-for-profits. They work in government. They work in the public defender's office. The coolest black women you know are in the public sector. So when the Doge cuts came down, 300,000 black women lost their jobs overnight. And then when the DEI cuts came down, for some in this room, DEI might mean crappy programs that teach people to hate Jews. Those kind of DEI programs should be done away with. But for us, that word means something different, DEI. It means maybe I'll have a shot at a job. And so when the DEI programs were cut, even our private sector opportunities also went away. And suddenly, if you look at unemployment data, unemployment has been basically flat under Trump, up 3 points in the black community. All of the economic pain of the past 12 months has been on our shoulders, especially the college-educated black women who are now themselves going into foreclosure. And there's a sense that we can't even say the word black without that being considered too woke. We can't even say the word black without that being considered DEI. We're hurt, but we can't holler. We're sitting on a white hot stove, but we can't even give voice to our pain for the first time. And so we're hurt, and we feel abandoned, and we feel isolated, and we feel that no one cares about us. And where are our friends? This is a horrible trick that's being played on two people who need each other. It's a horrible trick being played on two people who need each other and who could help each other, but who now talk about each other more than we talk to each other. We now talk about each other more than we talk to each other. And when we talk to each other, sometimes it doesn't go very well. Because we think we're programming our phones are programming us. And there are geopolitical adversaries in Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea that know if you are going to bring down the West, if you are going to wreck American democracy, If you are going to end Western civilization, the first thing you do is attack the Jews. The second thing you do is to make sure that the friends of the Jews are pushed into the camp of being enemies of the Jews. And so your people are in danger because people are using anti-Semitism, anti-Israel, so-called anti-Zionist hatred to bring down the West, and they're feeding poison to my community that's also suffering alone. This is the challenge that we now face. This is the challenge that we now face. But if you know for sure that when people sit down face to face and they speak their bitterness and they speak their disappointment and they speak their frustration, and then the other person speaks theirs, something arises in the quiet afterwards. You might ask me how I know. I'm a part of a crazy group of blacks and Jews. A crazy group of blacks and Jews. We call ourselves the Exodus Leadership Forum. Last year we did 50 dinners across the country, blacks and Jews. Some of them went very badly. Some of them didn't. And here's what we discovered. We don't know each other the way we used to. But when we look into each other's eyes, more often than not, we start to remember something. The thing that we're scared to say to you is the same thing you're scared to say to us. We're scared. We don't know what to do. Neither of these political parties seem to know what to do with us. We don't know where to go. Our children look at us. We don't have answers. We're scared. We don't know. I've never heard so many black people talking about leaving America. Should we even stay here? We're scared. We need more friends and fewer enemies. Desperately. We need more friends and fewer enemies. And you're in the same situation. Scared. And wanting to be witnessed in your pain and in your pride. In your vulnerability and in your strength. Wanting to be witnessed as people who, in living memory, were in ovens. There are people walking around today that still have the numbers on their arms, and yet somehow you've been able to create the strongest middle class in the West, the strongest state in the Middle East, and be the most generous, kind, supportive community to every other community. And you want to be witnessed in that and recognized in that. You don't want your children to have to change their names in their Uber apps so they can feel like they can get home safely. That you want to be seen not as victims, but as human beings who have achieved a lot and suffered a lot and aspired to a lot and also have fear. You need more friends and fewer enemies too. So if black people need more friends and fewer enemies, and Jewish people need more friends and fewer enemies, and if black Jews need both sides of the family to stop fighting, wouldn't it be crazy for us to stay enemies of each other? I think it'd be crazy. I think that's crazier than trying. I know you felt let down during the Gaza war. And there were black people who said and did things that are just beyond despicable. Sometimes marching with terrorist groups, sometimes justifying despicable behavior. Those things happen and it's wrong. But also, you got to remember, for black folks, we don't support wars in general. And so it put us in a tough spot. I have to speak for my people. We haven't supported a war since World War II. Black people, we don't really support wars. Vietnam War, we didn't support that war. Muhammad Ali gave up his title rather than support that war. Dr. King, April 4th, 1967, in this city, opposed that war. 12 months to the day, the next year was shot in the face. But he'd rather do that than support a war. When as many black people as died in 9/11, please don't forget, black people died by the scores in 9/11. But when George Bush wanted to go into Iraq, 80+% of white folks supported him going into Iraq. 80+% of black people did not. Black people don't support wars, and so when that was the issue, it was harder. But thank God the hostages are home. Thank God there's a little bit more peace. And I'm starting to see black people rubbing their eyes and looking around and realizing the people that we've let down, who never let us down. And it's hard to admit when you've hurt somebody. It's hard to admit when you've let a friend down. And so we're going through a process with black leaders now. I want you to understand that. Meeting and talking and saying, guys, this is not going to work. I want you to know there's a thawing in the heart and a recognition that we can't get through this by ourselves. And you can't get through this by yourselves. And so I think the future can be promising. It won't be everybody. There'll be some knuckleheads in the Jewish world that will never forgive anybody and will say this is why we should only help ourselves, and that's okay. They have that right. And there'll be some knuckleheads in the black community who will figure out any reason to be mad at Jewish people or mad at Israel or mad, period. God bless them too. But that's not all of us. And that's not all of you. There is something in your culture that is very similar to something in ours. And it was what the sister mentioned before I came up here. Jewish people are capable of a moral miracle. It's an extraordinary capability that you have. And we respect it because we see it in our own people. Think about what you've been through and think about who you are. 3,000 years, chased out of every country, having to sleep with go bags ready, just in case they came in the night. And when they came in the night, having to flee. And what did you tell your children, though? Did you tell your children, hate everybody? Did you tell your children, these people are horrible? No. You're holding your babies, running and whispering to your children, baby, it's your responsibility to repair the world. Who does this? Young man, your people. Who does this? They didn't say repair the shtetl. They didn't say repair the synagogue. They said, you repair the world, baby. The whole world. This is insane. For 3,000 years, that's what they told you. And you passed it down, and they passed it down, and they passed it down through horrors. The last century was already the bloodiest century for Jews before the Holocaust. Through horrors. And the minute you got out, the minute they took the boot off your neck for a second, brother, you immediately stood up and started helping everyone. This is a moral miracle. Was it Tikkun Olam? Say it right? Tikkun Olam? Repair the world. This is a moral miracle. Almost without precedent. And because of that spark, because of that commitment, no pressure, young man, no diamonds. Huh? No pressure, no diamonds. That's why your people are so beautiful. And that's why they shine regardless, because of how they handled that pressure. And they didn't become the evil that was done to them. You see, that's the extraordinary achievement of your people. Now, we don't have 3,000 years of hell, but we got 300. Beaten, right? Enslaved, right? Worse, right? But somehow, brother, when we came out of that, if you took the average American out here and put them through one weekend of what we went through, being beaten, being lynched, being castrated, being raped, all the horrors, for one weekend, average American, they would try to burn the country down on Monday. We didn't go through it for a weekend, or a week, or a year, or a century. 300 years of that. Yet the minute we got our opportunity to speak to the world, what did we say? I have a dream. I have a dream. It includes the people who beat us and their children and their babies too. I have a dream. It's a moral miracle, brother. You have two peoples. Why did everybody worry about the Black-Jewish alliance? They never worry about the Black-Swedish alliance. They never worry about the Jewish-Japanese alliance. Why everybody worry about the Black-Jewish alliance? Because they know you have two peoples that have the cultural DNA. Yours is repair the world, Tikkun Olam. Ours is justice for all. We could have come out and said justice for us and burn you to the ground. We said justice for everybody's babies. Justice for all. Two people capable of moral miracles. When you take the cultural DNA of Tikkun Olam and the cultural DNA of justice for all and you put it together, you get a double helix of hope for humanity. Not just for blacks or for Jews, for the whole world. I'm not worried about Jewish folk. Y'all been around 3,000 years. Y'all are hard to stop. I read in the Bible, this group came against you, that group came against you. Ain't none of them around. So y'all got a pretty good track record. I'm not worried about y'all. Black people, we're hard to stop. I'm worried about everybody else. If we don't do what we did before and find a few of us and a few of you who are willing to repair the whole world together. Thank you very much.